Jack Bennett jogged down the busy Houston sidewalk, his interview folder clutched tightly in his sweaty hand. He glanced at his watch again. 17 minutes until the most important meeting of his life. The morning sun beat down on his freshly ironed suit, and he could feel small beads of sweat forming at his temples. At 26, Jack had already faced his share of setbacks. 2 years of failed job applications in the aerospace industry had left him working night shifts at a local convenience store just to make rent. But today could change everything. Galactic Defense Initiative was the premier space technology firm in the country, and somehow, against all odds, they had called him for an interview. "Excuse me," he said, squeezing past a group of tourists. His portfolio contained 6 years of designs, calculations, and innovations that had earned him top marks in college, but so far had failed to impress any actual employers. Today felt different. Today had to be different. Jack checked his watch again. 15 minutes. He was making good time. The GDI building loomed ahead, a gleaming tower of glass and steel reaching toward the sky like a monument to human innovation. Jack allowed himself a small smile. Maybe his luck was finally changing. That's when he heard the commotion. A small crowd had gathered on the corner ahead, people standing in a loose circle, some with phones out but nobody moving to help. In the center of the circle, an elderly man lay sprawled on the sidewalk, his cane just out of reach. Jack slowed his pace. Someone would help. Someone always helped in situations like this. He scanned the crowd, expecting to see someone kneeling beside the man, offering assistance. Nobody moved. 14 minutes until his interview. Jack hesitated, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. The old man tried to sit up but fell back with a grimace of pain. His face was ashen, his breathing labored. 13 minutes. With a deep breath, Jack pushed through the circle of onlookers and knelt beside the fallen man. "Sir, are you okay? Can you hear me?" Jack asked, setting his portfolio aside. The old man's eyes fluttered open. They were pale blue and clouded with pain. "My chest," he gasped. "Can't breathe right?" Jack nodded and pulled out his phone. "I'm calling an ambulance. Just try to stay calm." As Jack dialed 911, he was acutely aware of his watch. 12 minutes, 11. The emergency operator asked detailed questions about the man's condition, his approximate age, the symptoms. Jack answered as best he could while loosening the man's collar and checking his pulse like he remembered from a first aid course in college. "The ambulance is on its way," Jack told the old man, whose name he learned was Carl. "Is there someone I can call for you?" Carl shook his head weakly. "My phone. In my pocket. My nephew." He couldn't finish the sentence, his breathing becoming more labored. Jack carefully retrieved the phone from Carl's jacket and found the contact list. "Your nephew? What's his name?" "Chuck," Carl whispered. "Call Chuck." By the time the ambulance arrived 8 minutes later, Jack had missed his interview window completely. His phone showed 3 missed calls from Susan Williams, the GDI hiring manager. He had sent her a brief text explaining the emergency, but received no response. The paramedics worked efficiently, placing Carl on a stretcher and attaching monitors to his chest. One of them, a woman with kind eyes and quick hands, looked at Jack. "Are you family?" "No, just a passerby. I found him collapsed here." She nodded. "Well, you probably saved his life. Looks like a heart attack." "Another few minutes?" Jack swallowed, hard. "I tried to call his nephew from his contacts, but no answer. We'll take it from here. You can go about your day." Jack stood on the sidewalk, watching as they loaded Carl into the ambulance. The crowd had dispersed. His interview was long past. His dream job, gone. He picked up his portfolio, now scuffed from the sidewalk, and sighed. "Sometimes doing the right thing costs you," he said to himself. As the ambulance pulled away, Jack walked slowly toward a nearby bench and sat down. He opened his portfolio and looked at the designs he had been so eager to show the GDI team. Innovative propulsion systems, theoretical models for atmospheric entry. Years of work. He sent another message to Susan Williams. I apologize for missing the interview. I hope we can reschedule. The elderly gentleman is on his way to Houston Memorial Hospital. No response came. 2 days passed in a blur. Jack returned to his night shifts at the convenience store, restocking shelves and working the register with mechanical efficiency. He had sent 2 more messages to GDI but received nothing in return. By the second evening, he had accepted that his chance was gone. Then his phone rang. Jack didn't recognize the number. Probably another bill collector. He almost didn't answer, but something made him accept the call. Jack Bennett? The voice was deep with a gravelly quality that sounded vaguely familiar. Yes, that's me. This is Chuck Norris. Jack nearly dropped his phone. Chuck Norris? The Chuck Norris? The martial arts expert? The movie star? The man whose name had launched 1,000 memes? I think there's been a mistake, Jack stammered. No mistake, son. You helped my Uncle Carl 2 days ago when he had a heart attack on the street. The doctors say if you hadn't stopped to help, he wouldn't have made it. Jack sat down heavily on his couch. Sir, anyone would have done the same. That's where you're wrong. There was a pause. I understand you missed a job interview to help him. How did you know about that? My uncle mentioned you were in a hurry, said something about Galactic Defense Initiative. I have some friends there. Jack's heart began to race. Mr. Norris, Call me Chuck, and get a good night's sleep. A car will pick you up tomorrow morning at 9. My friends at GDI want to meet you. The line went dead before Jack could respond. He stared at his phone in disbelief. Tomorrow, he would meet Chuck Norris. Tomorrow, he might still have a chance at GDI, and he had no idea that tomorrow would change not just his life, but the fate of all humanity. Jack barely slept that night. He tossed and turned, his mind racing with thoughts of Chuck Norris and second chances at Galactic Defense Initiative. By morning, he had convinced himself it was all an elaborate prank. Still, at 8:45 a.m., he stood outside his apartment building wearing his best suit, the same one from the failed interview attempt. The small coffee stain on his left cuff reminded him of his nervous rush that day. At exactly 9 o'clock, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. The driver, a woman with short gray hair and perfect posture, stepped out and opened the rear door. Mr. Bennett, I'm Diane. I'll be driving you today. Jack hesitated. Where exactly are we going? To meet Mr. Norris as arranged. Her expression gave away nothing. With a deep breath, Jack slid into the back seat. The inside of the car smelled like new leather and pine air freshener. The windows were tinted so dark that passers-by couldn't see inside. They drove out of the city, past the suburbs, and into the Texas countryside. After an hour, they turned onto a dirt road that didn't appear on the car's navigation system. Jack watched as they approached what looked like an ordinary hill. As they got closer, a section of the hillside slid open to reveal a tunnel. Whoa, Jack said, leaning forward. What is this place? Diane didn't answer as she drove into the tunnel. The artificial hillside closed behind them. They continued downward for what felt like miles before emerging into a vast underground parking area filled with vehicles that looked nothing like normal cars. Please follow me, Diane said after parking. Jack trailed behind her, taking in the gleaming walls and bright lights of the underground facility. They passed people in lab coats and others in uniforms he didn't recognize. Everyone seemed busy and focused. After going through 3 security checkpoints where his fingerprints and retina were scanned, Jack was led into a large conference room. Standing at the far end, looking out at a screen showing what appeared to be live footage of Earth from space, was Chuck Norris. He turned as Jack entered. In person, Chuck looked older than in his movies but carried himself with the same powerful presence. He wore simple clothes, jeans, boots, and a button-up shirt. The famous beard was trimmed short and had more gray than brown now. Jack Bennett, Chuck said, walking over and extending his hand. Thank you for coming. Jack shook his hand, trying not to show how starstruck he felt. Mr. Norris, call me Chuck. Have a seat. He gestured to the large table. As Jack sat down, 2 other people entered the room. One was a woman in her 50s with short black hair and intense brown eyes. She wore a dark blue suit with a small pin that matched the GDI logo Jack had researched before his interview. The other was unlike anyone Jack had ever seen. Tall, at least 7 feet, with blue-tinged skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. The being had large eyes that blinked sideways instead of up and down, and 4 fingers on each hand. Jack stared, his mouth open. "Jack," said Chuck calmly, "meet Dr. Elaine Parker, Human Ambassador to the Galactic Federation, and Zorvak, Federation Representative to Earth." Dr. Parker smiled at Jack. "Welcome to the real Galactic Defense Initiative, Mr. Bennett." Zorvak inclined their head. When they spoke, it was through a small device attached to their neck. "It is an honor to meet one who shows the best qualities of humanity." Jack looked between them, trying to process what he was seeing. "I don't understand. What is this place? What's happening?" Chuck sat beside Jack. "What you think you know about Earth's place in the universe is just a small part of the truth. We are not alone, and we haven't been for a very long time." Dr. Parker tapped on a tablet, and the wall screens lit up with images of stars, planets, and beings of all shapes and colors. "The Galactic Federation consists of 212 member species across our section of the Milky Way. They've been watching Earth for centuries, waiting for the right time to make official contact." "But why me?" Jack asked. "Why am I here?" Zorvak stepped forward. Their movements were fluid, almost like they were floating. "May I show you something?" At Jack's nod, Zorvak activated another screen. It showed the street corner where Jack had helped Carl, but from above, as if from a satellite. "We have been monitoring Earth closely," Zorvak explained, "looking for proof that humans are ready to join the wider galactic community." The video zoomed in. Jack watched himself kneeling beside Carl, calling for help, waiting with him. Then, it showed several other people walking past before Jack arrived, some even stepping around Carl without stopping. "The Federation values compassion above all else," Chuck said quietly. "Technology can be taught, knowledge can be shared, but the willingness to help others at cost to oneself, that cannot be programmed or forced." Dr. Parker nodded. "What you did, choosing a stranger's welfare over your own career advancement, this is what the Federation has been looking for, evidence that humanity is ready." Jack felt his face grow warm. "It wasn't that big a deal. Anyone would have—" "But they didn't," Chuck interrupted, pointing at the screen. "You did." Zorvak's device made a sound like gentle chimes before translating. "Your simple act tipped the scales in the ongoing debate about Earth's readiness. You have unknowingly become the catalyst for humanity's invitation to join the Federation." The enormity of what they were saying began to sink in. Jack looked down at his hands, then back up at the 3 faces watching him. "So what happens now?" he asked. Chuck smiled. "Now you get that job interview you missed, but for a position far beyond what you imagined. The public face of GDI is just a cover for our real work, preparing Earth for its place among the stars, Doctor." Parker handed Jack a tablet. On it was his original application to GDI, but with new sections highlighted. "Your aerospace designs caught our attention months ago. They're surprisingly close to some Federation propulsion concepts, which is quite remarkable for someone working with Earth's limited understanding of physics. We need people like you," Chuck said simply. "People who can grasp alien technology and help adapt it for human use. People who make the right choices when it matters." "And if I say no?" Jack asked quietly. Zorvak tilted their head. "Then you leave here with no memory of this meeting, and Earth's invitation to the Federation is withdrawn for another generation." The room fell silent. Jack looked at the images of stars and alien worlds on the screens, then back at Chuck Norris, apparently Earth's secret liaison to an interstellar alliance. "When do I start?" Jack asked. Chuck's smile widened. "You already have, son. You already have." The next few weeks passed in a blur for Jack. He moved into a small apartment on the GDI compound, deep beneath the Texas desert. His days were packed with training sessions, briefings, and lessons about the galaxy that left his head spinning. "Look overwhelmed," Chuck said one morning, finding Jack staring at a holographic display of the Milky Way. Tiny lights represented Federation worlds scattered across the spiral arms. Jack nodded. 2 weeks ago, I was stocking shelves at a convenience store. Now I'm learning about faster-than-light travel and alien biology. Chuck handed him a cup of coffee. You're doing fine, better than most new recruits. How long have you been part of this? Jack asked, taking a sip of the strong black coffee. Chuck looked at the galaxy map. 27 years. I was filming a movie in New Mexico when I stumbled onto something I wasn't supposed to see. Instead of wiping my memory, they recruited me. Turns out my public image makes me the perfect secret liaison. Before Jack could ask more questions, Dr. Parker entered the room with 2 people Jack hadn't met yet. Jack, I'd like you to meet your training team, she said. This is Olivia Martinez. She's our top linguistic expert. Olivia was a tall woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She nodded at Jack. I've learned 3 alien languages so far. I'll be helping you with basic Federation communication protocols. And this is Paul Johnson, Dr. Parker continued, former Navy SEAL. He'll handle your physical training. Paul was a broad-shouldered man with close-cropped hair and serious eyes. He shook Jack's hand firmly. The human body reacts differently in space and on other worlds. We need to get you ready. Jack looked between them. I thought I was here because of my engineering skills. You are, said Dr. Parker. But every GDI agent needs a well-rounded education. You'll split your time between engineering projects and basic training. That afternoon, Jack found himself in a large workshop filled with technology unlike anything he'd seen before. Zorvac stood beside a table covered with what looked like engine parts, but they glowed with an inner blue light. This is a Federation standard propulsion unit, Zorvac explained. Your design showed remarkable similarities to our early prototypes. Jack picked up one of the pieces. It was lighter than it looked and warm to the touch. How does it work? It creates a small fold in space-time ahead of the ship, while expanding space-time behind it. The ship itself never moves faster than light within its own bubble. Jack studied the components carefully. Like the theoretical Alcubierre drive, but actually functional. Zorvac's eyes blinked sideways in what Jack had learned was a sign of approval. Exactly. Your understanding of theoretical physics is impressive for someone with Earth's limited scientific knowledge. Can I take it apart? Jack asked. That is why you are here. For the next 4 hours, Jack disassembled and reassembled the alien engine under Zorvac's guidance. Each piece seemed to connect to the others in ways that defied Earth physics, but somehow made perfect sense once he saw them working together. After engineering came linguistics with Olivia. She taught him the basic greeting phrases in Galacta, the Federation's common language. Your mouth isn't designed for some of these sounds, she explained after his 5th failed attempt at a simple hello, but the translation devices fill in the gaps. The important thing is to understand the culture behind the words. By evening, Jack was drenched in sweat as Paul led him through a series of exercises designed to prepare his body for different gravity environments. Breathe, Paul instructed as Jack struggled with a weight that seemed to get heavier and lighter at random intervals. Your muscles need to learn to adapt quickly. Why all this physical training? Jack gasped. I thought I'd be working on ships, not fighting. Paul helped him up as the weights powered down. Because the galaxy isn't all friendly Federation worlds. There are threats out there that make Earth's worst dictators look like kindergarten teachers. Later that night, Jack sat with Chuck in the facility's small cafeteria. Despite his exhaustion, Jack couldn't stop asking questions. What kind of threats was Paul talking about? Chuck's expression grew serious. The Federation found Earth just in time. There's a species called the Harvesters moving through this sector of the galaxy. They don't make alliances. They take what they need, resources, territory, people, and leave ruins behind. And they're coming here? To Earth? Chuck nodded. Their scouts have already entered our solar system. Without Federation protection and technology, humanity wouldn't stand a chance. Jack put down his fork. How long do we have? 6 months, maybe less. The news settled over Jack like a heavy blanket. And I'm supposed to help stop them? I'm just an engineer with some good ideas. Sometimes that's all it takes, Chuck said. One person with the right idea at the right time. The next morning, Jack met with Dr. Parker in a secure room deep within the facility. She activated a screen showing a massive ship under construction in what appeared to be lunar orbit, hidden from Earth's telescopes by the moon's far side. This is the Earth Defense Vessel Liberty, she explained. Our first true starship built with Federation help, but designed primarily by humans. The ship was beautiful, sleek and powerful, with subtle curves that reminded Jack of the way water flowed around stones in a river. We need your help with the propulsion systems, Dr. Parker continued. The Federation engineers are brilliant, but they don't think like humans. We need someone who can bridge that gap, make their technology work with our understanding. When do we start? Jack asked. Right now, pack a bag, we leave for the moon in 1 hour. As Jack hurried back to his quarters, he passed a window that looked out at the underground hangar. Several smaller craft sat gleaming under the lights, each one a miracle of engineering that nobody on the surface knew existed. A month ago, he had been nobody special, just a man who chose to help a stranger instead of helping himself. Now he was heading to a secret base on the moon to help build humanity's first starship. Sometimes the right thing costs you, Jack whispered to himself, remembering his words after missing his interview. And sometimes it gives you the stars. The journey to the moon took less than 30 minutes. Jack sat strapped into a seat aboard a small Federation shuttle, watching Earth shrink below him. The craft made almost no sound as it left the atmosphere, using technology that made conventional rockets seem like ancient history. First time in space? Olivia asked from the seat beside him. She and Paul had joined the mission, along with Dr. Parker and several Federation engineers. Jack nodded, unable to look away from the blue planet below. I never thought I'd see this view. None of us did, she replied. Most astronauts train for years. We got lucky, or unlucky, depending on how you look at the harvester situation. The shuttle curved around the moon, revealing a site hidden from Earth telescopes. A massive crater on the far side had been converted into a base. Domes of transparent material covered sections of the lunar surface, and at the center of the largest dome floated the partially completed Liberty. Home sweet home, Paul said, as the shuttle approached a docking bay cut into the crater wall. Tears. Next few days were a blur of activity. Jack was assigned quarters in the human section of the base, a series of connected modules with artificial gravity that made it feel almost like being on Earth, except for the view of stars from every window. Work on the Liberty began immediately. The ship's engine room was a marvel of technology, with the standard Federation propulsion unit at its core, surrounded by human-designed systems trying to interface with the alien tech. The problem is here, said Greg, the chief engineer, pointing to where the Federation power core connected to human-built conduits. The energy transfer is unstable. We lose nearly 40% of the potential thrust in the conversion. Jack studied the connection point, thinking of the engine he had disassembled with Zorvac. The Federation tech doesn't use electrical energy the way we understand it. It's more like directed probability. Greg looked at him, surprised. What do you mean? Their power cores don't generate energy. They increase the probability of energy being present at a given point. We can't capture it with ordinary conductors because it doesn't flow like current. For 3 days straight, Jack worked on designing a new interface system that didn't try to convert the Federation energy, but instead created a gradient of probability that guided it where they needed it to go. When they finally tested the system, the efficiency jumped from 60% to 94%. How did you figure this out? Dr. Parker asked, reviewing the test results in the control room. Jack shrugged. It's similar to some theoretical models I played with in college, just applied differently. Once you stop thinking about energy as something that has to move from point A to point B, and instead think about increasing its likelihood of already being at point B, it makes more sense. Word of Jack's breakthrough spread quickly through the base. That evening, he found himself invited to a meeting with the station commander, Admiral Bill Jones, a stern man with silver hair who had once commanded nuclear submarines before being recruited to GDI. "Your solution to the propulsion problem saved us weeks of work," the Admiral said. "Time we desperately need. The latest reports show the Harvester fleet is accelerating. They'll reach our solar system in 4 months, not 6. The room fell, silent. Around the table sat the project leads for each section of the Liberty, along with Chuck Norris, who had arrived that morning on another shuttle. "Is the ship ready?" Jack asked. "The hull is complete, weapons are at 80%, and, thanks to you, propulsion is now operational," Admiral Jones replied. "But we're still working on shields and navigation, and we need more ships. The Liberty is impressive, but it can't face their fleet alone." Chuck leaned forward. "The Federation is sending help, but their nearest battle group is 3 months away. We need to be ready to hold our own until they arrive." The meeting lasted late into the night as they discussed strategies and timelines. When it finally ended, Jack walked with Chuck along a curving corridor that looked out at the stars. "You've done good work here," Chuck said. "Your Uncle Carl would be proud." Jack smiled. "How is he doing?" "Much better. He asks about you." I told him you're working on a special project for the government. They stopped at a viewing platform that offered a clear look at the Liberty. The ship hung in the center of the dome, surrounded by construction platforms and smaller craft. Its hull gleamed silver in the harsh sunlight, nearly 400 meters of Earth's first true defense against the stars. "Do you think we can win?" Jack asked quietly. Chuck was silent for a long moment. "The Harvesters have destroyed dozens of worlds. They're single-minded and ruthless, but they've never faced humans before. What difference does that make? They have better technology, more ships." "Technology isn't everything," Chuck replied. "Humans have something special. We adapt, we improvise. We refuse to give up even when logic says we should. That's why the Federation wanted us as allies. That's why your act of kindness meant so much to them. It showed we can think beyond ourselves." Over the next 2 months, Jack split his time between improving the Liberty's engines and helping design smaller fighter craft that could be mass-produced. In the lunar facility, his days were long, often stretching to 18 hours before he collapsed into bed for a few hours of sleep before starting again. Other engineers began coming to him with problems, and Jack found he had a talent for bridging the gap between human and alien thinking. His solutions weren't always elegant, but they worked, combining Earth ingenuity with Federation principles in ways neither would have considered alone. During a rare break, Jack stood with Olivia and Paul in the observation dome, watching a test flight of the new fighters. The small ships darted around the Liberty, their movements quick and unpredictable. "The Harvester ships are bigger, more powerful," Olivia said, "but our pilots can outmaneuver them if the engines hold up." Paul nodded. "And the weapon systems we've developed should penetrate their armor if we can get close enough." "If," Jack repeated. The word hung in the air between them. Later that night, an alarm blared through the base. Jack rushed to the command center, along with everyone else who was awake. Admiral Jones stood at the main console, his face grim. "We've detected Harvester scout ships entering the Kuiper Belt," he announced to the crowded room. "They're earlier than expected." On the main screen, small red dots appeared at the edge of the solar system. There were dozens of them, moving steadily inward. "How long do we have?" someone asked. "At their current speed, 3 weeks until they reach Earth." Jack felt his stomach drop. "But the Liberty isn't ready for a full battle, and the Federation fleet won't be here for another month." Admiral Jones looked at him, then at the others gathered in the command center. "Then we better get ready. As of now, we're on full war footing. The Liberty launches in 48 hours, ready or not." As people rushed to their stations, Chuck found Jack in the crowd. "Looks like you'll get to test your engines sooner than we thought." Jack nodded, feeling a strange calm settle over him despite the chaos. "Good thing I helped that old man on the street. Otherwise, I'd be watching all this happen from Earth with no idea what was coming." Chuck squeezed his shoulder. "Sometimes being in the right place at the right time means being exactly where you're needed most." The next 48 hours passed in a storm of activity. Jack barely slept as he and his team made final adjustments to the Liberty's engines. Every system on the ship needed to be checked, double-checked, and tested under battle conditions. There was no time for perfect solutions, only working ones. "This is crazy," Greg said as they sealed the last access panel in the engine room. "The ship needs another month of testing before it's ready for combat." Jack wiped sweat from his forehead. The artificial gravity on the Liberty was already active, making their work harder but necessary for the systems to be tested as they would perform in real conditions. "Ready or not, the harvesters are coming," Jack replied. "We work with what we have." 6 hours before launch, Jack stood in the Liberty's command center with Admiral Jones, Chuck Norris, Dr. Parker, and the ship's captain, Diane, the same woman who had driven Jack to the GDI facility on his first day. It turned out she was one of Earth's most experienced test pilots before joining GDI. "Final crew assignments," Admiral Jones said, bringing up a list on the main screen. "Captain Diane will command, with Dr. Parker as Federation liaison. We have 53 human crew members and 17 Federation advisors aboard." He scrolled down the list until he reached engineering. "Bennett, your chief engineer," Jack stared at him. "Sir, Greg has more experience. Greg will be on the support team here at Lunar Base. Your understanding of the hybrid systems makes you the best choice for the position." Chuck nodded in agreement. "The Liberty needs people who can think on their feet. That's you, Jack." The launch came with little ceremony. The great dome above the lunar base opened like a flower, and the Liberty rose silently into space, accompanied by 12 smaller fighter craft. From his position in engineering, Jack watched on monitors as the moon fell away behind them. "Main engines operating at 93% efficiency," he reported to the bridge. "All power systems nominal." Captain Diane's voice came through. "Clear on the comm system. Take us to Mars orbit 1/4 speed. Let's see how she handles." The trip to Mars took less than an hour, a journey that would have required months with conventional rockets. The Liberty moved with a grace that belied its size, the artificial gravity keeping the crew stable even during maneuvers that would have crushed them under normal physics. They were running battle drills near Phobos when the alert came through. The Harvester fleet had accelerated again. Their main force would reach Earth in just 7 days. "All hands to battle stations," Captain Diane ordered. "Set course for Earth orbit. We'll make our stand there." The next days were filled with preparation and waiting. More ships joined them in Earth orbit, older craft that had been secretly retrofitted with Federation technology, and new fighters fresh from the lunar base production lines. Representatives from all Earth nations were finally told the truth about the coming invasion, though the public remained unaware. Jack worked with his engineering team to push the Liberty systems to their limits, finding ways to get more speed, more power, more efficiency from every component. In rare moments of rest, he stood at the viewport in his quarters, looking down at the blue planet below. "Hard to believe it was just a few months ago that I was looking for a job," he said when Olivia joined him during one break. "Now we're defending Earth from aliens." "Life's funny that way," she replied. "One small choice can change everything." On the 7th day, the long-range sensors detected the Harvester fleet entering the inner solar system. The images showed massive ships, dark and angular like predatory sea creatures made of metal and shadow. 87 vessels, reported Nancy, the tactical officer on the bridge. "Their lead ships will reach our position in 6 hours." Captain Diane called all section chiefs to the command center for a final briefing. Earth's defense fleet now consisted of the Liberty, 22 retrofitted vessels, and over 100 fighter craft. Impressive by human standards, but vastly outnumbered by the Harvesters. "The Federation battle group is pushing their engines to the limit," Dr. Parker informed them. "But they're still 2 weeks away at best." "Then we hold the line until they arrive," Captain Diane said simply. She looked at each person in the room. "We're fighting for everything humanity has ever built, every person who has ever lived, every child who will be born in the future. We cannot fail." Chuck Norris, who had insisted on staying aboard despite Admiral Jones's objections, spoke up. "The Harvesters have never faced united human resistance before. They don't know what we're capable of when pushed to the wall." As the meeting ended, Chuck pulled Jack aside. I need to show you something before the battle begins. They walked to a small room adjacent to the bridge. Inside was a communication system unlike anything Jack had seen on the ship before. This is a direct link to the Federation Council, Chuck explained, only to be used in the most dire circumstances. Jack looked at the strange device. Why show me this? Because you may need to use it if the rest of us fall. The Council is still divided on whether humanity is worth the cost of defending. If things go badly, they need to be reminded of why we matter in this galaxy. And what reason is that? Chuck smiled. The same reason you stopped to help an old man even though it cost you a job. Our capacity for compassion, even when it makes no logical sense. 5 hours later, Jack stood at his station in engineering as the Liberty moved to intercept the Deer, approaching Harvester fleet. On the monitors, he could see Earth's defenders forming up around them, a thin line of ships against the darkness. All hands, this is the captain. Diane's voice came through the ship-wide comm. The Harvesters have refused all attempts at communication. They will reach our position in 30 minutes. Stand ready. Jack checked his systems one last time, then opened a channel to the bridge. Captain, request permission to boost power to forward shields. We can redirect from non-essential systems. Do it, she replied without hesitation. As Jack worked, he heard Chuck's voice come over the ship's communication system. The older man had taken position on the bridge beside Captain Diane. This isn't just about defending our planet, Chuck said to the assembled fleet. This is about showing the galaxy what humanity stands for, not just our technology or our weapons, but our compassion, our willingness to help a stranger, even when it costs us something. That's what makes us worth fighting for. Jack smiled as he recognized his own journey in those words. From a missed interview to the bridge of Earth's first starship, all because he stopped to help someone in need. First wave of Harvester ships entering weapons range, Nancy reported from Tactical. Captain Diane's voice was calm and clear. All ships engage at will. Protect Earth at all costs. As the Liberty surged forward to meet the enemy, Jack felt a strange peace settle over him. Whatever happened in the next hours would determine humanity's fate among the stars. Sometimes, doing the right thing costs you everything, he thought, and sometimes it gives you a chance to save the world.